Stuart Mandel, watching with many others the FSU board meeting. It's surreal. It's a surreal thing to watch, he says. These trustees are talking like it's entirely in their control whether someone will give them more money if they leave the ACC. The word, quote unquote, deserves has been used more than once. It is really remarkable to watch a group of trustees essentially sounding like a bunch of drunk fans in a bar complaining about the school. These are the people that make the decisions, and these are the people that, hate to be one of those, but they agreed to the new deal that they are currently working under. They liked it then. They wanted their own network. They got tired of watching us over here on the SEC, and they wanted their own. And look how that worked out. It feels like history is repeating itself. We say hello to Mark Schipper from the Fifth Down College Football. Remember, we talked to Mark about a year ago. He writes about a lot about the way it used to be and the way it is now. Mark, hey, thanks. Great to see you again. How was your tour of America? That's the last time we saw you.
Hey, Paul, great to be back. I was calling that the American Odyssey. It was an incredible tour across the country, experiencing this sport that we all love. And now we're all just watching it continue to crack up. Fascinating days.
So put it into perspective, because the way it used to be, in some cases, was like yesterday, but that's not exactly what you're talking about here, is it?
No. If you're talking about the original sort of conference configuration, they were about like-minded schools in rational geographic territories coming together to play sport in a way that they were all comfortable with. The intrusion of commercialism, professionalism, television had always been watchwords amongst colleges and things they wanted to keep under control, but they've lost control in a lot of ways, clearly. I think it probably goes back to 1984 and the Supreme Court decision. And we're watching the consequences now of what's happening when the big wolves are allowed to kind of devour the smaller dogs, and the reorganization that happens in that pecking order.
And, fans are used to this, and we're about to see one of the greatest changes ever in college football next year when we see two superpowers coming into the SEC and then USC going to the Big Ten. And as we're talking, meetings are going on that could promote more changes. I realize we're speculating now, but fans are so used to a certain way. How do you think they're going to adapt?
Well, they'll keep watching. College football in particular is the most personal game we have in this country. It's connected to your family, your heritage, your region, and people will continue to watch, but I don't think fans are going to put up with everything forever. So if you have a school with a certain tradition that gets demolished, they don't have natural rivals anymore, they don't feel like they have the same stakes to pay for, I think college football at that point is going to hope that they're able to convince the next generation to love the sport like our generation and the generations before love it, because it was a very distinct culture, a very distinct game. And clearly the thing that I've been saying, Paul, is the 21st century started in 2020. COVID kind of kicked off this new era of realignment and change. It's a revolutionary era. It's nothing short of revolution, and that's what we're looking at right now.
Let's move to today for a second, because there's so many things happening contemporaneous to what we're talking about here. Sure. Starting with the Pac-12. This league just feels like it's on the verge of a complete implosion. Yeah. The Rose Bowl, as we used to know it, certainly no longer will be the same. Just put all that into perspective from what you know and what you think could be happening.
Yeah, you can see I'm wearing my Rose Bowl hat right now. The Rose Bowl sent that to me as a very nice gift. I have some Rose Bowl posters and helmets on my wall. That's the Rose Bowl, for people who don't know, even for Southern football, is the heart of the college football postseason. It's the most important game in college football history. When you talk about Alabama, the Rose Bowl made Alabama. Bear Bryant famously said in 1960, we at Alabama would walk to the Rose Bowl if we were invited back. So the Big Ten and the PCC Pac-12 now have dominated that game from 1947 to 1998 when the BCS came in and they sort of returned it to college football. But that idea that the West Coast champion will be waiting on that sod January 1 to play either the Big Ten champion or post BCS CFP era, another great team, is that era is certainly passing, and we're going to see where the Rose Bowl lands in the new expanded playoff. For college football traditionalists and people who love this sport, we all obviously hope that the great bowl games in the Rose Bowl are part of this sport going forward.
Mark, I agree. I've been to the game, and I was amazed the first time I went to the actual Rose Bowl, Big Ten, Pac-12, how much of a religious experience it was, especially for the Big Ten schools. I think Michigan State was there the year I was there when they won the game, and I'm like, this really wasn't that big a deal. I mean, I was out there for the national championship game a couple of days later, and people were acting like they had just won one. But that game has also stood in the way of progress for college football, as you know, because of that sacrosanct 4 o'clock on Sunday after on New Year's Day with the San Gabriel Mountains in the background. We're over that now, but it really has, in many ways, curtailed the game. I as a Southerner, I found that ridiculous. I know you're loyal to the Rose Bowl, but explain that.
Well, I think the Rose Bowl knows its place in the history of this sport. I was talking about Alabama earlier. The 1926 Rose Bowl was the making of Southern football. With Southern football certainly would have come on at a certain point later on, but had Alabama not upset Washington in that game, the country would have looked at Southern football differently for much longer. All of a sudden, Southern football developed behind the rest of the regions, for those who might not know the history, and they were not highly respected as a region, as a football power, but they hadn't really had a chance to prove themselves on the big stage. They went out and beat a very good Washington team, and that was, as they say, the making of Southern football. So, January 1 was it was better than Christmas morning or whatever holiday you celebrate for college football fans. We had our big marquee bowl games throughout the day, and it was anchored by that Rose Bowl. So it was college football's unique contribution to American culture and American sport. I was thinking of Muhammad Ali saying, "I'm bigger than the Rose Bowl, the Super Bowl, and the Kentucky Derby put together." The Rose Bowl was just part of the American football consciousness. The Super Bowl is a copy of the Rose Bowl. So they had their reasons, but we're in the 21st century now. College football is changing, and the Rose Bowl is going to have to change with it, or they will be left out. No question about it.
Always great to catch up with Mark Schipper. Thank you very much, Mark. We will catch up with you along the way during the season. We're heading to the break as we watch east, west, north, south to see what could be the next headline for the next hour. We'll be right back.